Chapter 3. The Sleeping Dragon. Oh, brother, thought Jack, hurrying after Annie. By the time he entered the bike shop, she was already talking with the man who worked there. Good news, Annie said, rushing over to Jack. He says we can get to the Panda Center on mountain bikes, and it's only 30 yen a day per bike. Did he say how long it takes to get there? Asked Jack. Not too long, said Annie. She clapped her hands, her eyes shining. Jack, I can't believe this. Annie was so excited about the Panda Center that Jack just couldn't say no. He reached into his pocket and took out 3 20-yen notes and gave them to the shopkeeper. The man handed Jack and Annie their helmets. It's a beautiful ride up the mountain, but be very careful, he said as Annie put her helmet on. Thanks. See you later. She grabbed a blue mountain bike and steered it out of the store. Be careful, the man called after her again. Very careful of what? Wondered Jack. But tucking his helmet under his arm, he grabbed a red bike and followed Annie. So the bike guy told me to go up the street, turn left onto the highway, Annie said. Then we just stay on it until we come to the Panda Center. Cool. How far away is it? Asked Jack as he put on his helmet. He snapped the strap under his chin. Not far, just 5 or 6 miles, said Annie. What? Said Jack. Don't worry, we can do it easy. Annie pushed off and pedaled away. To Panda Paradise, she shouted, zooming up the street. 5 or 6 miles, muttered Jack. Up a mountain? Great. He got on his bike and followed Annie. She reached the end of the street and turned left onto the highway. The highway is like the freeway, so it's really fast moving cars. Jack hurried to catch up as he pedaled up the highway. He glanced at the scenery. On one side of the road was a steep mountain slope. It was covered with fir trees and bushes with purple and pink flowers. On the other side of the road was a steep drop down into a river valley. The river sparkled with sunlight as it rushed through green farmland. More cloud-covered mountains loomed in the distance. A blue bus suddenly roared past. Jack almost lost his balance. Good grief, he said. That was close. Then a car that looked like a taxi flew by. This is definitely not safe, Jack said aloud. How could he have let Annie talk him into riding bikes on a highway? They should have taken a bus or a taxi, or better yet, not gone at all. Annie! Jack shouted. She was so far ahead that he could barely see her. Annie! Jack yelled again as loudly as he could. Slow down, Annie! Slow down! Annie rounded a sharp curve and disappeared from sight. Jack stood up on his pedals and pumped with all his might. He imagined Annie veering into the path of a vehicle or driving off the cliff. When Jack finally came around the curve, he saw Annie up ahead, waiting beside the road. A big grin lit up her face. Thank goodness you're okay, she called. I was worried about you. Jack rode up and stopped his bike. This road isn't safe, you know, said Annie. You're telling me, said Jack, panting. But I can understand how that dragon felt, can't you? Said Annie. It's so beautiful. Jack caught his breath and looked around. Yeah, it is, he said. But how much farther do we have to go? We can't forget about our mission. I don't think it's much farther. Come on, we'll hurry, said Annie. She climbed back onto her bike. I'll go first, said Jack. Let's stay together and keep as close as we can to the side of the road. I'm serious, Annie. He gripped his handlebars and started pedaling again. Leading the way, Jack hugged the side of the road. He glanced back a couple of times to make sure Annie was doing the same. As they struggled uphill, huffing and puffing, a light rain started to fall. Mist gradually descended over the valley and the highway as they biked higher and higher up the mountain. More vehicles roared by, but Jack tried to ignore them. He couldn't believe they were biking up a mountain on a Chinese highway in foggy weather. Finally, Jack and Annie came to a sign that said, Conservation and Research Center for the Giant Panda. Yay, we're here, said Annie. The rain had stopped. Jack was wet, exhausted, and out of breath. I hope you're happy, he said. Annie gave Jack a big smile. I am, she said. Totally. The Panda Center was nestled between two tall mountains. It was on the far side of a narrow river. A small bridge crossed the river to the entrance gate. Near the gate, a group of grown-ups was waiting to go inside. Jack and Annie rode to the parking lot and parked their bikes next to a small blue bus. They took off their helmets and hung them from their handlebars. Oh no, cried Annie. She pointed to the Panda Center sign. At the bottom it said, "No one under 18 admitted unless accompanied by an adult." "I don't believe it," said Jack. "We came all this way for nothing." He had to admit he was secretly relieved. Now they could get back to their mission. "I can't accept this," said Annie. "We have to get in there." "Your attention, please, everyone," a woman in a uniform called to the group waiting outside the gate. "Let's go and listen," said Annie. She ran across the bridge. "Annie!" Jack called. He sighed and then hurried after her. They stood at the back of the little crowd. "My name is Dr. Ling," the young Chinese woman said to the group. "Welcome to the largest giant panda reserve in the world. This is a place for scientists and animal protectors." "That's me," Annie said. "Animal protector." Several people looked at Annie as if they were wondering who she was. "Oh, brother," thought Jack. "Good," Dr. Ling said to Annie. "Pandas are one of the most endangered species in the world. For at least 3 million years, they have lived in China's dense bamboo forests. Now, those same forests are being cut down to make room for farms and roads." "How many pandas are left?" asked Annie. "Throughout the world, only about 1,600 in the wild," said Dr. Ling. "Today, the species is threatened with extinction." "That's terrible," said Annie. "Shh," Jack said. But Annie didn't shh. "Can we save them, Dr. Ling?" she asked. "We hope so. We're working hard to do just that at the Panda Center," said Dr. Ling. "We are responsible for about 200 pandas here. Many were researched after an Many were rescued after an injury or illness, and many were born here. Last year we had 16 new babies." "Wow," said Annie. "While the Panda Center is not a place for tourists," said Dr. Ling, we do allow volunteers to come in and help us. So without further ado, let's all get suited up." Annie started walking with the crowd. "Annie, come back," Jack whispered loudly. But Annie just signaled to Jack to follow her. Then she stepped boldly into the Conservation and Research Center for the giant panda.